Um, Again, we have these meetings every month, and we send out information through a newsletter about twice a month. So let me bring up the agenda. Okay, I'm just going to read the vision, mission, and values real quickly. The vision of Khhc is every person in our community has a safe, decent, stable, and appropriate home. Our mission is the Kitsap Housing and Homelessness Coalition provides leadership to end homelessness through planning, coordination among social service providers, advocacy, and education. And our values are the coalition strives to carry out our mission with respect, commitment, compassion, integrity, and a willingness to change. And I'd like to introduce the executive committee. We meet once a month and do various activities to support facilitating these meetings and the events. And there's a lot of things kind of that we do to make sure that we can continue to provide information and support. As I said, I'm Katie Sharp. I am the chair. Bridget Glasspool from Kitsap Mental Health is the vice chair. Emily Larson from Kitsap Rescue Mission and Dana Emily from Eagles Wings are co-secretaries. They take turns taking notes at our various meetings. And then we have support from Lisa Lechuga, our past chair, from the Kitsap Regional Library, Leif Wagner from Bremerton Housing Authority. He updates our website. Carl Borg from Kitsap County, and Kathleen Knudsen, it's Katie, from the HEN program, and Madison Tuttle from Kitsap Homes of Compassion. And I will say something about this list. This is just a very interested group of providers that want to support our organization in any way we can, and we could always use more capacity. So if you're interested in learning more about what we can do or helping with a committee or something, we meet once a month at 9 a.m. on the first Wednesday. So email us if you need to. Our email is admin@kitsaphhc.org, and we'd be happy to get you more involved if you'd like to. And then I will go over the agenda real quickly, and then we can go right into the training. So we're having a special training today, overdose awareness training. I think this training, Kaela, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it was provided in person yesterday. Is that right?
Yeah, it was provided in person last night, but actually it's not just last night. I do this quite a bit in the community, okay. And actually Madison heard it this morning. So yeah, there's some folks here who've heard it before, but yeah.
So perfect. Thank you so much for being here, Kaela, and offering this. And again, these meetings are recorded, usually by the conduit. Marwan, are you here? I didn't see him here. Emily, can you check?
I didn't see him either, so.
So let me just record this because I want to make sure to gather this because we're doing this training, and I'd love to put that out as a resource. And then as Bremerton Housing Authority, we're doing an overview, and we'd love to share that as well. So let me just record it just in case Marwan can't make it today.
Oh, I just saw him.
Oh, I can hear myself. Can anybody else hear me? Marwan, are you there? I'm going to go ahead and record here.
Recording in progress.
And then at the end, we're going to do some updates about kind of what's coming up for this coalition. We're doing an in-person award ceremony. We have awards that are still open, and then we'll have some updates from agencies. So that's kind of the general outline of what's going on today. And again, thank you everyone for being here. We're excited to, we're just excited to present what we have today. So Kaela, are you ready? I'm going to stop my sharing.
I am ready. And I just want to say, Marwan said he's in the chat and he said he's recording.
Okay, perfect.
So, all right, I'm going to share my screen. Oh, I almost hit the leave button. That wouldn't have been great. There it is. Yikes. Okay, do you see my training?
Yep.
Let me make it a better. There you go. How's that?
Looks good.
All right. My name is Kaela Moontree. I work at Kitsap Public Health. I'm in the Chronic Disease and Injury Prevention Program, and a lot of what I do is overdose education and naloxone trainings in the community. It's been a while since I've done one virtually, and I cannot see the chat or raised hands. So if someone can just say, hey, there's a question, just let me know, because I'm happy to stop along the way and answer questions.
I'll help with that, Kaela.
Thank you.
Mhm.
All right, so I'm just going to start with kind of just some facts about opioids, opiates. The difference between an opiate and an opioid is that one's synthetic and one is naturally based. Opioid is the synthetic term. Fentanyl, as you know, is a synthetic opioid, but there's lots out there that are not synthetic. The natural ones are derived from opium from the poppy plant. And what happens is they bind to the opioid receptors in the brain, spinal cord, and gastrointestinal tract. And part of what happens when that occurs, something in that, oh my gosh, my brain just went blank. But that process causes respiration to decrease. Prescription opioids, as a lot of us know, or most of us know, are used to treat pain. Some of the side effects of those include euphoria, sedation, nausea, respiratory depression, constipation, and itching. And that is the case whether it's someone's using it illicitly or it's being prescribed. It doesn't matter if it's, oh my gosh, you guys, I'm really sorry. I can tell I just had lunch not very long ago. Anyway, if it's not pharmaceutical grade, the same thing has happened. And what happens also is that it creates a tolerance. Higher doses are needed then to get the same effect, and that's whether it's pain management or to get high. It's gonna take higher doses, and if someone's been on it for a long time and they have a physiological dependence to opioids, they will have withdrawal when the person stops taking that drug. And with both prescription and illegal opioids, there is an overdose danger. So some risk factors for overdose. One is mixing drugs, and that could be an opiate and a stimulant like cocaine or methamphetamine, but it also could be benzodiazepines, could be alcohol. Any of those things, mixing it, taking it with anything else can increase the risk for an overdose. Someone's tolerance, if they've built up a tolerance and then they don't use for a couple days or longer, it puts them at higher risk for an overdose. And that could even be just a couple of days. Their tolerance could go down enough that they'd be at a higher risk for an overdose. The quality of the drugs, when we're talking about anything besides pharmaceutical grade opiates, the quality is very questionable and it's risky. And they put a lot of interesting fillers in opioids, everything from acetaminophen to plaster. So it's a really, you just don't know what you're getting. Using alone puts someone at a risk for dying from an overdose. It doesn't make it riskier. It doesn't make them more likely to have an overdose, but it does make it more likely for them to have a fatal overdose because there's nobody there to administer naloxone. Their age and physical health, just like any other thing, if someone is having other health issues or an older adult, that could put them at higher risk, as well as a previous non-fatal overdose. So I'm going to go over the signs and symptoms of an overdose. I'm going to start with what it looks like when someone's highly sedated or very, very high. It's a really fine line between someone who's very high and someone who's overdosing. So I always tell people, when in doubt, treat it like an overdose. So someone who's highly sedated could have constricted pupils. They may be vomiting, sleepy, and nodding off. You'll literally see their head bobbing, kind of nodding off. They will respond to stimulation. If you shout their name, if you know it, if you shake them, hey, you, they're not going to be all perky and animated, but they'll probably bat you away. They'll likely be mentally confused or have decreased awareness. Someone who's overdosing is going to have pinpoint pupils, and you can see here like that where it's a fine line. A layperson probably isn't going to know the difference between constricted pupils and pinpoint pupils. So you're just looking for smaller pupils. There are other signs that are more evident. They may have pale or clammy skin. Their fingernails or lips may be blue or gray or purple. That really depends on their skin tone. If it's someone with a lighter complexion, it'll be more bluish purple. If it's someone with a darker complexion, it'll be kind of a more ashen or gray color. The inability to waken to stimulation. If you shake them, shout at them, they're not gonna respond to that at all, and they probably won't talk. And then there's a very kind of distinctive and maybe unnaturally sounding choking or gurgling sounds, or their breathing will be very slow. If they are breathing, they may also have stopped. Sorry, I had to turn off my little space heater. If you've been with someone at the end of their life, it's that death rattle sound. It's a very distinctive noise. So kind of the continuum of an overdose is that someone's breathing will slow down, their breathing will stop. Once their breathing has stopped, depending on how long they've had a lack of oxygen, and even very low oxygen could cause some brain issues, but lack of oxygen could cause brain damage. Longer the breathing has stopped, then their heart will stop, and then death happens. And like I said, opioids sit on those those opioid receptors, and that decreases the ability to breathe. An overdose can happen pretty quickly with fentanyl. I would say, when it was heroin, it was like 30 minutes to 3 hours. Fentanyl, 30 minutes is kind of the end of that kind of period. So it'll happen significantly quicker. You're not going to see someone overdosing from fentanyl hours after they've taken it. It's going to be fairly quick. And when they overdose, though, it is very possible to reverse the overdose if someone is there on time, but it needs to be a quick response. Any questions so far?
I don't see anything in the chat, Kaela.
Okay. It's really funny because I know you guys can see me, but I'm literally like staring at my screen and no faces. So I feel like I'm just talking to my computer.
We're here. We're just listening closely.
All right. So difference between Narcan and naloxone is just one is generic and one is brand name. So it's like tissue, Kleenex, and ibuprofen and Advil. Naloxone has been around for a very long time and used in medicine, and it's used to reverse an opioid overdose, and it's very safe. It's kind of become more well-known in the last few years to kind of regular Joe Q citizen, but people who work with people who use drugs, harm reductionists, people who've done syringe exchange have been also using this for a very long time. And what it does is it temporarily displaces those opioids from the receptor sites. And it's just that naloxone has a stronger affinity for those receptor sites. So it will be drawn to those sites and it'll bump the opioids off those sites. And it only lasts for 30 to 90 minutes. And it also will only work on opioids. So if someone is overdosing from something else, or they have some other health issue going on, it's not going to do anything. However, if they are taking multiple drugs and opioids is one of them, it will work on the opioid in that scenario. It's just not going to change what's going on from if it's alcohol or some other type of drug that will kind of be sedative, like benzos or something. It's not going to work on any of that. And what will happen is if someone is physically dependent on the opioid, it will put them immediately into withdrawal, where if someone who's dependent on opioids doesn't use for a little bit and it gradually wears off, they'll start to go into withdrawal, but the withdrawal from Narcan is like someone flipped a switch, and it's pretty traumatic and it's pretty painful. And what I'm hearing is that fentanyl specifically is even worse. Like that withdrawal is very different and much worse than fentanyl from or withdrawal from other opioids. Like I said, it reverses that respiratory depression. It's not a controlled substance, and there are no known side effects. There's no allergic reactions. There's no potential for abuse. And then it does no harm. And when I kind of give it a little disclaimer here, like it will do no harm if you give it to somebody who's not overdosing on opioids. Say someone's having another medical issue, and you come upon them and it presents to you like an overdose from what you've heard, and you give them naloxone, but actually they're having some other medical issue. There's not going to be no harm, no foul. My disclaimer is that the people that it actually harms is the people whose lives it saves, just because of that withdrawal for people who are physically dependent on it. It is a pretty difficult process to go through. So this is just an illustration. I really use this slide just to kind of give you an idea of what happens. You can see the opioids are the pink, the naloxone is the kind of greenish ones, and they just come in there and they settle on there and kick the opioids off, which allows the breathing to start. So I'm going to go through these bullets, and then I'll go through each bullet. I'll go through this list and then go through each bullet individually, except for that top one I just list the once. But when you're coming upon a scene and you think it might be an overdose, the first thing I encourage people to do is look for hazards. That may be syringes, but it might not be. It doesn't mean that someone is using illicitly. And the other thing to know there is that more people are smoking now than injecting, but just look for hazards in the area. It could be a person's dog, right? They're unconscious. Some stranger comes upon the scene. They may have a protective dog. So just scope out the area. Make sure that you are taking care of yourself. You're going to call 911 and then look for those signs of an overdose, the non-responsive, rattly breathing, no breathing, bluish or ashen lips. And then administer that first dose of naloxone. And you're gonna, I should have brought one home so I could hold it up. But you're gonna insert, actually, I have one. Insert it into their nose and push this plunger. Can you guys see it?
If you hold it in front of you, yeah, there you go. If you hold it in
Okay.
front of you, you can see, yeah.
So, and just, there's no cap to pull off. You put it in their nose, and I will go through this again, and then push the plunger. And it only works once. There's just one dose in each device. After administering naloxone, rescue breathing would be the next step. And that's, when I give out naloxone, I also give out a CPR face mask, so that people have that to use and to protect themselves. And it's 2 quick breaths and then 1 breath every 5 seconds. If they do not respond in 3 minutes, which is an eternity in an emergency, then give the second dose of naloxone in the opposite nostril. And then continue to monitor them as this process goes on. So calling for help, you're just going to let them know that a person is unconscious and not breathing, and that you're going to be administering naloxone. Really, from this point on, you're going to have someone on the phone talking to you. They're going to kind of walk you through that process until help arrives. Evaluate for signs of that overdose. So looking for signs of oxygen deprivation that we talked about before. They're not breathing, they're blue or ashen. Shake them and just holler at them, hey, you, wake up. Might be someone you know, call their name out. If there's no response, you're going to do a hard sternal rub and grind your knuckles into their chest for 5 to 10 seconds. And that will, it's a painful stimulation that will hopefully elicit a response. If it does not, then proceed as if it's an overdose. So administer the naloxone. Naloxone comes in several forms. I only have the nasal naloxone, but there's also intramuscular, which is when they distribute that, it comes separate, a vial and a syringe, which is why I don't distribute it. Most lay people are not comfortable drawing up a syringe, especially in an emergency situation. So I stick with the intranasal. And then intravenous naloxone is really only used by medical folks. Naloxone only works for 30 to 90 minutes. And the reason that that is important is because opioids can last longer. So once the naloxone wears off, a person can go back into an overdose. And that's where the monitoring is really important. And then multiple doses of naloxone, and really this should say will be necessary. I am hearing more and more and more that, and this will be counter to what some of you have experienced, I know, but I'm hearing it from sources I really trust, that if people wait 3 minutes between doses, which is really important and also really difficult, that it shouldn't take more. Most people are coming out of it in 2 doses. I know that that's dramatically lower than what people are seeing. The reason I stress this is because the less naloxone they get, it's just the most compassionate and humane way to administer naloxone because of that effect of that withdrawal. The more naloxone they get, the worse their withdrawal symptoms are going to be. Any questions?
No questions in the chat yet.
Okay. So how to use it, you're going to peel, this has a foil backing on it, peel that back, insert it into their nose, put the nozzle or the tip into their nose until your fingers hit their nostril, push the plunger with your thumb. If you can tilt it back, tilt their head back a little bit, and also tilt the, if you tilt the naloxone device kind of towards their head, it just helps it gets past the hair and the nasal passages. And then wait 2 to 3 minutes. And while you're waiting, you're going to do rescue breathing and tilt the head back and lift the chin, pinch their nose closed, put your hand on their forehead to hold their head back. And then it's 2 quick breaths and 1 breath every 5 seconds. And you need that until either help arrives or they start breathing on their own. And then my little caveat about rescue breathing, opioid overdose is a breathing problem. CPR may not be warranted, but rescue breaths will be warranted if they're in an overdose. The big thing, naloxone's main purpose is to restart their breathing. And I know that different CPR classes teach different things, and it depends on, and I know sometimes they teach rescue breathing and sometimes they don't. And I know even different organizations that teach CPR, one organization may be teaching it, one may not, or you may take it from this organization this year, and in 2 years, they're telling you something different. And so I just really want to drive home that this person's going to need oxygen. And then you're going to monitor the person through this process. And what I say about this is really, if they'll let you, someone who's coming out of this, they're going to have a couple of things going on. But if they start breathing again, and if they come to, and if they're talking and, it's pretty well reversed, they may just want to get up and go. And they'll want to do that for a couple reasons. One is, they don't want to get in trouble. They don't want to get lectured. They don't want to get shamed. They don't need any of that right now. They don't probably actually ever need that. The other thing is they're going to be feeling really crummy if it's someone who's dependent on opioids. So it's called dope sickness. And the only way to feel well is to, unfortunately, and maybe counterintuitive to people who've never been through that, is to use more opioids. The very scary thing about that is, right, they've got naloxone on board. We know naloxone doesn't last as long as opioids. They go use more opioids, and then they're at even higher risk for going back into an overdose. So that's just something to keep in mind, and know that we can't make them stay with us. We can encourage them to stay with us. I think Greeting them with compassion when they come to is a step in the right direction. You're going to want to stay with them until first responders arrive. And make sure you explain to them what happened. Hey, my name's Kaela. You had an overdose. I gave you Narcan. They're going to know they got naloxone if they're dependent because they're going to feel crummy. Someone who is opiate naive, who isn't a regular opiate user, will not have withdrawal symptoms, but everybody else will. If you need to leave that area, like let's say you need to get your phone, you haven't called 911 yet, you need to go get your phone and you didn't have it on you, make sure you put them on their in the recovery position. And the recovery position, you're going to lay them on their side, put your hand, support their head with their hand. And then their bottom leg will be straight, their top leg will be bent and thrown over the bottom leg, and that will keep them from rolling over. And that way, if they vomit, they won't aspirate on their vomit. Also, if they start breathing again but don't come to, you're going to want to put them in the rescue position. And I think the important thing to remember with naloxone is that what you're looking for is their breathing to start again. So if someone's breathing starts, but they don't, they're still unconscious, they don't need any more naloxone. The naloxone's done its job. They do need to be monitored in case they slip back into an overdose. But if they're breathing, the naloxone's done its job. So then after the overdose, like I said, welcome them back, offer assurances. They're going to be confused and restless. You want to stay with them till help arrives. I already said if they start breathing but don't wake up, roll them onto their side. Know that they might be in opioid withdrawal. I know I've said that a couple times. And then make sure you take care of yourself. You're going to want to talk to yourself about your experience. And so or maybe you're not actually, whatever. Some people are external processors, some are not, but just make sure you go and take care of yourself around this because it's going to be a pretty tough experience. Then I just want to say a few things about fentanyl because that's the big ugly thing out there right now. So fentanyl is obviously very strong, 80 to 100 times stronger than morphine. An overdose can happen in seconds, and that fentanyl does not require more naloxone. And I know that is also counter to what a lot of people have heard. I was actually in a conference yesterday where 4 representatives from 4 different states presented data that showed that it showed that fentanyl does not require a fentanyl overdose does not require more naloxone, that they had similar outcomes. And really what they were looking at was higher dose naloxone. They're looking at coming out with, and actually I think there's one on the market that's 8 milligrams. And the outcomes when 8 milligrams versus 4 milligrams, which is what the kits that we have are, they were very negligibly different. And actually there was a speaker there from Oslo, Norway, and he was floored that the US is looking at higher doses because in Norway, they think 4 milligrams is too much. Let's see a chat question. So do you think people are waiting 3 minutes between doses and that's contributing to the it takes 5 doses thinking? Yes. No, I don't think people are waiting. I think in an emergency, it's really hard to wait that long. And I think that it's just, I actually have quite a few opinions about this, but I will stick to, I don't think people are waiting 3 minutes between doses. And I think that absolutely contributes to too much naloxone or a higher count of doses that are given. And then just for folks that are, you might be responding to and things to know about fentanyl, the amount and strength of fentanyl in someone's either baggie or of powder or the pills they have, like that can vary quite a bit. It's just not consistent because they're illegally manufactured and there's just no consistency. And then there's also no way for someone to tell if a pill contains fentanyl based on look, smell, or taste. My rule of thumb, if I'm talking to people, is if you did not yourself pick it up at a pharmacy, don't trust it. Like if you know exactly where it came from. And I was in another webinar where was with the poison control, and they put 2 different pills out, the M30s, to which one's the counterfeit pill. And I guessed the wrong pill because the stamp on the pharmaceutical grade pill wasn't as clean as the stamp on the illicit pill. And it was a really good lesson for me. Like, you just don't know. You don't know by looking at something. Oh, did I freeze? No. My slides
You're
aren't.
good. You're good.
Yeah, except my slides aren't moving. Oh,
Wait, you almost got it.
I did it with my mouse. I did a new way. Okay. I want to talk about responding to a fentanyl overdose because it's, there were a lot of myths out there about that too. And just know that there have been no confirmed cases of overdose among bystanders or professional first responders who have responded to a fentanyl overdose. And you can't overdose on fentanyl by touching it. So, I mean, the only time that fentanyl absorbs into the skin is when it's in a fentanyl patch. And if you think about those folks wearing those patches for as long as they wear them, it's really formulated for it to absorb through the skin and for it to be a time over time. So coming upon a scene and touching it, that being said, if someone were to touch fentanyl and have it on their hands and then touch a mucous membrane, their eye, their nose, their mouth, that puts them at risk. Folks who are using drugs can overdose on fentanyl no matter how it's used. So smoking, swallowing, snorting, or injecting. Some routes of administration are higher risk than others, but currently I can tell you that injection drug use is going down and overdose rates are going up. More people are smoking, but more people are dying. So it's not safer necessarily to smoke it. And then again, this just reiterates that it is safe to respond to a fentanyl overdose. And then in terms of getting more naloxone, individuals could, right now it's available, Narcan brand is available over the counter. The FDA approved that, I think, a couple years ago. I am now seeing it in Kitsap County. It comes in a box with a bright pink on the label. It's about $50, which could be cost prohibitive for folks. If people, there's also a statewide standing order for naloxone that's been around since 2019. The state health officer wrote a standing order saying that it doesn't require a prescription, and you could go into a pharmacy and ask them, and that's for the generic, I did it again, generic naloxone. And all Apple Health plans cover naloxone at a pharmacy, and most insurances will cover it with a copay, most private insurance. The website stopoverdose.org is has a ton of information, not just about fentanyl, but a lot of other drugs. But they also have a naloxone finder. If you put your zip code in there, it'll show you the places that it's available. Kitsap Public Health is on that list. It also has a way there's a link there to connect you to a website where you can get it through the mail. You can contact Kitsap Public Health to get some naloxone. And then organizations who want naloxone to distribute to their clients or anyone that the folks that they're working with can get it through the Washington State Department of Health's naloxone distribution program. And that is, if you email this email address, that's the place. This is the program at Kitsap Public Health that handles naloxone. And that is it.
Thank you so much, Kaela. So this came up because last month we had a great presentation on the availability of naloxone cabinets that could be placed at different areas that were strategic to the Kitsap County, and kind of there's these availability of these cabinets, but who would want them? And so this came up from that, and this is kind of a natural progression of like, how do you use it? And
right.
So I think that I have not seen this before, and I think there's different service providers in this group that may have not seen this, or if you have seen it, maybe you have follow-up questions. So we can open it up to questions now if you'd like, but we are recording this, and also I assume we could share the presentation.
Yeah, I can email, you can share the recording, but I can also, if you want, Katie, email you the slides.
Yep.
And you can
Yep.
share them out.
I don't see any questions. But I did see that there might be a website too about overdose on the Kitsap Public Health website.
I think it directs you to, I can look, but I think it directs you to stopoverdose.org.
Okay.
And honestly, like, I wish I could tell you that we're in, that we do the, I don't know what they put on the website when they put it on there. So, let's see.
Oh,
I'm pretty
the-
sure it's
yeah.
stopoverdose.org.
I hope everybody found this valuable. Thank you so much. Kaela and Joanne, you have a question?
Yeah, I have just a quick question. So is it still valuable to administer I can't say
You
the
can
word,
call it Narcan.
but the Narcan if you don't do the rescue breathing? Because I could imagine that there's some people that wouldn't be comfortable doing that.
Yeah, good question. I mean, yes, there's some value because it's gonna kick those opioids off. It really depends on how long they've been without oxygen, but absolutely there are some people who are not gonna be comfortable administering or doing rescue breathing. So it's really, I mean, that's their thing, that's what's going on, but so I mean, if you've called 911, depending on where you are, first responders will get there pretty quickly.
Oh, well, thank you so much, Kaela. And thank you again for joining us and spending your time with us today. And we don't normally have trainings, but I think this is a great platform to do that. So if any of you have any suggestions for trainings that would be helpful for this group that we might not be hearing based on our roles or what our agencies are doing, please suggest them because we can bring them to our meetings. Thanks, Kaela. And we're going to transition to the Bremerton Housing Authority update. And Jill Stanton is here, and we're going to kind of tag team. There's just been a lot of interest in what Bremerton Housing Authority is doing because we're out in the community a lot. We're working with different partners. Just on Friday, we had a great session on learning more about the Housing Choice Voucher Program. So we're signing some contracts with partners. So maybe all of you have seen me recently. But it's been really exciting to kind of figure out new strategies for working with our partners. And so we kind of just wanted to update you on our strategy. But also, I know there's a lot of interest in specifics about the Housing Choice Voucher Program so that you could help your clients. So we would love to provide more specific trainings like that. If you have questions, if you're running into things and you don't feel like there's the right tools available, please reach out to us. Our contact information is going to be on the last slide of this presentation. But again, we want to provide what would be useful to you as far as like, hey, how do you calculate affordability? How do you know if a voucher will, work for this unit? And if you want to help more, that's a great way to do that. So again, we can bring more training, but please just reach out and ask. We can do one-on-one. We could do a session here. So I just wanted to start with that. So let me share my screen. I'm having that same issue where my cursor is disappearing, Kaela. Like trying to click on my slides here, just a second. Yep, my cursor has disappeared from my slideshow. Isn't it nice when that happens?
But you fast forwarded to the last slide of our presentation.
Hey,
so-
that's great. There's some contact information. I literally can't see my cursor though. So just a second.
Oh.
Let me see. I can't even close the window. There we go. Let's try one more time. Looks like it might work this time. There we go. Okay, so again, we're going to tag team. We're open for questions. If somebody could watch the chat, that's great. I'm going to see if I can pull it up here. I think I can. I have it here. So, and I'm going to close my Teams. Okay, thanks everybody for joining us. Again, I kind of introduced kind of what we're doing today and providing some information on kind of what we've been doing and our current projects. And then I'm going to pass it to Jill.
Thanks, Katie. So it's really good to be here with you guys. I know I don't join every meeting, but every time I do, I get something out of it. And I'm really always proud of Kitsap County and the amazing work that all of you are doing. So it's really just such a privilege for me and for us at BHA to be able to serve our community, to serve the people in our programs, but also really to serve you as a partner. And so I think I want to start before we get into our mission and our guiding principles, just by saying this last 3 years has certainly been a lot of change at the Housing Authority. And we haven't always showed up in the way that we have wanted to with our customers as far as timely callbacks, timely emails, things like that. But we are getting better. We are getting more fully staffed. We're getting better technology in place so that we can keep up with the times and really communicate on the levels that our community expects from us. So for those of you who may have experienced us in ways that were not 100%, please have patience with us and forgive us. And please let us know. We really are committed to getting better. So with that in mind, I think most of you know our mission is to provide stable, quality, sustainable housing and services to people who have limited financial means. We also want to help people become economically self-sufficient and strengthen our communities. And it's very important to us that the federal and public funds and local funds coming into the Housing Authority are used efficiently and effectively. And to that point, we have internal audits and we have external audits to make sure that we're accountable for that. We set our guiding principles a couple of years ago. Would be the first one being to lead with equity. We also want to be very data driven so that we're making decisions that are based in evidence and that we can measure. It's very important that we prioritize our customers' experience. We want the experience of people who contact our agency and the people in our agency to really come out with something that's meaningful to them and that improves their lives. And so we work hard on effective communication. Katie Sharp is a big part of that. Her position was not here 3 years ago, but it became apparent to us that we really needed a communication manager. And so we've invested in her and in her team. And then finally, just collaborating at all levels. So that's internally, that's taken a lot of work, but that's also externally, making sure that with the people that are in our programs, that we are collaborating with them, collaborating with our local, federal, and state agencies, and then also with all of you and the partners in Kitsap that we're working with.
And to that point, based on our guiding principles, we relooked at our strategy last year and we said, what are we focused on truly? And how do we measure something without kind of making sure it's an environment that it's okay to, be accountable to those things? Because we want to know that we're doing good. So if we don't get 100% voucher utilization, that's okay, because our goal is to keep, housing people and keep doing our work. But because the expectation wasn't clear, it was easy to say, oh, we're not doing enough. So how do we change kind of that mindset first? And what happened is we created these 4 focus areas for our strategy. Our first one being focus on listening to and caring for our residents and participants. Number 2, focus on cultivating strong relationships with our community partners and landlords. Number 3, focus on strengthening our financial position as a reliable resource within the communities we serve. Of course, these align with our mission and our guiding principles. And number 4 is focus on building our organizational capacity to support growth and change. There's, like Jill said, there's a lot of change happening right now in the housing world, in our organization, in our community. There's just a lot of change and lots of opportunity. And we really want to support all these focus areas to be able to take advantage of that and also do that in a way that supports everyone. So in 2023, these are a lot of the things we did. I'm not going to go through every one. But we did a lot of kind of foundational work to support this mindset change of putting all these focus areas together. And we said, we need to focus on the good. What are we doing now? What are the good numbers that are happening? And also what can we do in the future? So if you kind of get a foundation of saying, we want to track this to a point so we can celebrate it. We need to know what we're doing so we can do better. And so this is an exciting time. I just recently decided like focus on the good is our strategy, but it's also our philosophy. The neat thing is last year when we introduced it in an all staff meeting, we created this whole event around it just to say, after you leave this meeting, can you speak the language, focus on the good? So now in the hallways, it's, hey, maybe something's going on. And we're like, hey, let's focus on the good. You hear it all the time. It's a standard message we see and we hear, and it really created a foundation of saying, okay, now we're at this level, let's keep moving, let's think positively, and let's see what else can we do, because it is overwhelming. There's a lot of work to do in housing specifically, so we're excited about this strategy really going through the years and creating goals around it. Is there anything else you wanted to add about the strategy, Jill?
Well, I'll just say all of this stuff on this board is a lot, and it is impressive, and we're really proud of the things that we've accomplished. But the biggest thing really was this changing our culture from focusing on all of the stuff that's hard and all of the stuff that's negative and all of the stuff that our staff don't enjoy or don't like, to changing that perception to focusing on the good, because none of this other stuff can happen until you have a culture that's built around positivity and people wanting to do something. And you have to really work hard on changing their focus so that they can do these things that are very difficult in this industry to do. So I'll just reiterate what Katie said. It's very quickly after we started this language, and we bring it into everything, including our board reports. It's kind of like Nike, just do it. This is Bremerton Housing Authority. We're going to focus on the good. You see it pop up everywhere, and it really has been something that has changed the perception, the way that we work. Thanks.
And that's a good kind of transition to this.
Yeah, so we just wanted to, as we said, we're data driven. So these are just some of the numbers. Sometimes this surprises people that annually Bremerton Housing Authority is paying out close to $20 million in housing assistance payments through our voucher program. This is federal money, so none of it is local money. It all flows into us from HUD, and we pay it out to private landlords and anybody who's a landlord that is taking our voucher. So that's a lot of money. When about 3 years ago, that number was probably closer to about 11 to 12 million. So in the past 3 years, we've done several things to both increase the amount of vouchers that we're funding each year, but also to increase the amount of per voucher funding that we are funding each year. We did that by getting the fair market rents raised in Kitsap County so that we could actually pay closer to market rent to our landlords, and we can be more competitive, which opened up actually quadrupled the amount of housing units that were available to our voucher holders. So the 400K that's 400,000 per month that we increased what we were paying. In the last year, we've issued 117 new tenant-based vouchers. We also entered into contracts for 92 project-based vouchers. So those are vouchers that are attached to projects in our community. Those projects are usually a nonprofit or maybe another housing authority that needs a voucher that's attached to a unit for either ongoing just operational consistency, or what a lot of projects need is they need that project-based voucher attached to their property so that they can get grant funding that requires that. So we try to constantly know whose projects are coming up, what funding are you going for, so that if you are going to need a project-based voucher, we can try to get that on our radar early and make sure that it's available when our partners need it. We did the emergency housing vouchers. 100% of those got utilized. We'll talk a little bit about this more in the future or in the rest of the presentation, but the emergency housing vouchers were something that were issued in a way that we had not done previously. We were not allowed to have a wait list for these vouchers. We had to have referrals from partnering agencies, and those partnering agencies had to take on the responsibility of helping whoever they referred in find a place and be successful in keeping that place. Typically, when we pull somebody off of our wait list and we give them a voucher and they don't have that support in place, we have about a 30% success rate. So that means 30% of people being paid off our wait list are successful in getting housed and staying housed, and 70% are not, and their voucher ends up expiring. So what we learned through the emergency housing vouchers, where we really had 100% of the people that were referred in found a house. 100% did not stay in those homes. But it was really very low. I think 1 or 2 people that were not successful. And that taught us and served as a model that really led to the referral process that we're going to talk about in another slide. Thanks, Katie.
Yeah, I think these numbers are amazing, and just being able to kind of pull these numbers, Jill, and share these is so important to, of course, our strategy, but also just very motivating, right? I think the 19.9 million to the community just through federal funding is always the most impactful to me, and just keeping that top of mind. Like, the more work we do, the more money we can bring in to Kitsap. Then our other one, our focus area 2, are partnerships. And I know this has been on everybody's mind recently, but also this is where all you all come in. So Jill.
Yeah, absolutely. So this has been something that we have really focused on, is making sure that we are a really good partner. Sometimes we partner project-based vouchers. Sometimes we partner through writing a letter of reference for a grant somebody might be going for. We also try to reach out to agencies like public health and have them, come in. We invite them into our properties to help us understand the needs of our residents. The school district, that's another one that we try to reach out to and find out how can we be of assistance if they're homeless families with children, that we can figure out how to get them a voucher. We don't have that in place yet, but we are constantly reaching out to all of the organizations that we can. And so if you are an organization that's not working with us, but you could see a potential of how you could, or you could see a potential for a new way a voucher might be working, please reach out to us, because we are interested in working with our partners who are serving all along the continuum of housing. So whether it's from the unhoused to the shelters, supportive housing, all the way up into home ownership, the Housing Authority has an interest and we have resources. It used to be we really stayed in the supportive housing, affordable workforce arena. But at this point, the lines between who all of us are serving along the continuum have really thinned. And so we see it as very important that whether it's in a shelter situation, that the Housing Authority can be of assistance, we want to do that, because it very much matters to us that when people get one of our independent living vouchers or other housing through public housing, that they are ready to have that housing and that they're going to be successful. So we've really expanded our role on this. And I think the last thing I would want to say about our partnerships is that we promote heavily and encourage heavily our staff to be on boards of various agencies in our community, like Katie chairing this board, for instance. We want to be a part of what you're doing. We want to learn what you're doing. And so if there is openings and you're looking for people, we have very talented and creative staff that like to serve and like to do that sort of thing. So.
And I want to mention that this, of course, is not an all-encompassing list. We've done a lot of presentations in the community over the past year, talking about the continuum of care, talking about where Bremerton Housing Authority's strengths are, but also how we can take care of people throughout the continuum of care, like whether it's us being a facilitator of conversations, or how we can support housing so that there can be services attached to it. So we really want to think about ways that we can coordinate with all partners, and of course not all encompassing list. I think this list has grown every time we meet and talk about this, so we appreciate you all, and it's been so great to use our strengths. It is a strengths-based strategy, and I appreciate what was said there. It was in the chat, so I appreciate that. And so these are going to be brief. So we talked a little bit about 2023. And so our strategy moves forward. Our focus on the good moves forward. What can we do? We're already talking. So we've already created all these large projects that were initiatives that we're part of. So I'm not going to, of course, detail every one of these. They're on the slides. I have 2 slides. Specifically, the supporting housing across the continuum. We just mentioned this. Like, we have projects that we're going to talk about further in the slideshow about Evergreen Bright Start and our hybrid shelter, then the task force. So those are great ways. Those are 3 big initiatives we're talking about. But I wanted to show this slide to show how the focus areas come into play. Each of our larger initiatives really touch on each focus area. None of the focus areas are more important than the other, because they are all needed. We need to know how it affects each of these areas so we can really succeed in what we're doing. So again, supporting housing across the continuum, an innovative voucher utilization strategy, implementing new digital tools. We talked a lot about Rent Cafe, and I will mention it in just a second. My phone is ringing. And we'll talk about, how we're kind of implementing a lot. The change is happening, and it's starting to affect the public, and how we could really support adoption of new technology and what we need to do that. And then continue our repositioning project. I'll touch a little bit about this. We have a page on our website as well about repositioning, but really we are upgrading a lot of our properties right now so that we can really provide the best experience for all of our residents. So that's a large project outside of the voucher program that we're working on. So you'll start hearing more about that, but that's an exciting project. Again, how all of these initiatives touch each focus area is really important to us, and it helps us, I hate to say it, focus, because that's what this is about. Is like, there's so much we could be doing. What can we do? What's our strength? Who can we lean on? And what can we do to really expand all of our capacities?
And Katie doesn't hate to say it because she says focus all the time. Focus on
Yes. It's all about a language, isn't it, Jill? It's all about just pushing the message, and because it's so nice that we speak the same language and we can start doing these larger projects. Okay.
Speaking of larger projects, so some of you, maybe all of you may have heard, this is our latest kind of biggest project that we're working on right now. It's called Evergreen Bright Start. It is a true story of the power of partnerships. We have Kitsap Mental Health Services as our primary partner, but they certainly weren't our only partner. This project began in theory probably a year and a half ago as a result of our Foster Youth to Independence program, which is a voucher program that gave vouchers to foster youth that were aging out of foster care. That was a wonderful program. It was also a very partner-driven program. It was very successful in Bremerton and actually got national attention and state-level attention, resulting in some other things. But as a result of that program, it really came to light with many of our organizations that there really is not good options for 18 to 24-year-olds in our community that are experiencing housing instability and many other barriers to getting their lives started on the right path. And as we started meeting as a group regularly, we made some decisions early on about how our partnership, although it was and still is informal, we are getting into some contractual agreements now, but as we were developing, there's nothing formal. We were just meeting, we were expressing ideas, and one of the things that became very important to all of us was that we all know what we do, and we do those things very well. And sometimes we do dabble into each other's areas of expertise, and that's okay. That's fine. That's going to happen. We need that. But when we really can focus on our core competencies and our core strengths of our agencies and come together and bring all of those into a project, we felt that that project would have a higher level of success. And so that's what this particular project was built on. The housing authorities piece, obviously housing. So it was our job to find a building that we could use to house an adult. Kitsap Mental Health Services, they bring the case management and the mental health services, and they decided that that would be, you know, their primary focus, including, and this is what is so unique, including that they would find their own funding to provide those services, which took a huge relief off the housing authority, because lots of times there'll be one person or one agency building the project and needing to fund the project and bringing everybody else in. In this case, everybody came in with their own resources. Coffee Oasis is also a big partner, Scarlet Road, Olive Crest, Peninsula Community Health Services. There's just really too many for me to name because I will forget someone, but everybody was really at the table to say, how can we get a project and make it successful, get this age group housed, and then also get them on a path, whether it's they need health services, they need education, they need work training, whatever it is they need. Olympic College there with us as well. Whatever it is that they need, and bring it to them on site or make it easy for them to access that. And so that's really what we did. This property is a brand new property on Warren. We'll be closing on it in the next couple of weeks. It was also a partnership that was built on a relationship with the developer, a private developer. When he started building this project, he was not building it with this project in mind. I'm not even sure if we knew him when he started building this, but over several months, we developed a pretty strong customer relationship with this developer. And as the building got closer to being built, he, after lots of conversations about what to be done with this building, he asked if we wanted to buy it for this. As he said, this project you keep talking about, Jill, do you think you want to buy this building for this? And I said, yes, that's been my dream. And so he really had to stick in there with us because this is not a project that can sustain any debt. So we needed to have grant funding to buy this property, which is, you know, I'm sure all of you know that grant process is very difficult, time consuming, and takes a lot of fingers crossed, hoping it all works out. And in the end, because our city and our county believed in this project and made the first grant dollars in, we were able to leverage state money to purchase the building and get what we needed. So it was a great article in the Kitsap Sun, and I think all of the comments were pretty positive. There might have been one talking about taking it out of the tax basis, but even that, people seemed, you know, to be very supportive of having their tax dollars go to something in our community that's so important for this age group. So we're excited. We will be having a ribbon cutting ceremony sometime in May, and we're really, really hoping to open in June. So a lot of work still needs to go into the policies and the procedures and all of that, but we're excited. And Kitsap Mental Health Services will be moving their young adult unit onto this site. So they will see people living here, but they will also see other young adults out of this property.
And I bet you all don't believe that I said, let's do a minute per side. No, this is just a good reminder that Jill and I talk about this a lot. We're both storytellers, and I think the Evergreen Bright Star story is, again, something that is so unique. It comes with all of these partnerships, all of these unique things fell into place where we were able to do something amazing and so quickly. And it reminds us of the power of partnerships. And because we are storytellers, we have to tell the whole story. And I think that has value, and especially for Kitsap. We will be telling the story at a regional conference later in April. So there's just so much to gain from the story, and we want to be all of our storytellers. So, and to that point, another thing we're working on, we have a nonprofit, a 501(c) that we really have in place to support those additional resources that are needed for our residents. So specifically for this project, we're looking for funding furnishings, household items, and things like that. So we are going to be participating through our nonprofit Sound Communities in the Kitsap Great Give. I know many of you are participating as well, and this is our first year, but we just want to give everybody, we just want to share that with you, to say that we're kind of getting into this world, and we want to give a way for people to support this project specifically. So we will be doing that. So if you hear anything about it, please share it. We appreciate it. So lots of things happening with Evergreen Bright Star. And there's some really great questions, by the way, in the chat, Jill, but I think it has to do, let's talk about the next project, and then we'll answer the questions.
Okay, that sounds great. So this slide is kind of featuring two projects. The one on the left with the Washington State Department of Children, Youth, and Families. As I mentioned earlier, the Foster Youth to Independence program, that program really required that we take referrals from the Department of Children, Youth, and Families. So they would identify the youth that were aging out of foster care, make sure they were qualified for the program, and then refer them into the housing authority, and we issue the voucher. This program has been around for a while, but it was not very utilized at all throughout the nation for a very long time, primarily because you can't just give somebody a voucher and expect that they're going to be able to use it, especially somebody exiting the foster care system who may have many other challenges besides just being 18 or 19 years old and not having the parental guidance to lead them through a very complicated process like getting a voucher and getting housed. And so when the Department of Children, Youth, and Families came to looking at Kitsap and Bremerton and seeing if they could get this up and going in our community, Kitsap County in particular, Kristen Jewell, recognized that this would not be successful if there was not money for case management and for housing navigation services. And she really said it. She said, this is great. I would love to see this happen in Kitsap and Bremerton, but if there's not services, how does this work? And she got it. It was like, this is why this program has not been utilized to the point, everybody wants to do this, but without that money, and the vouchers don't come with that money from HUD. So Kitsap County actually decided that on a test basis, they would do a model and they would pay for those services. And the housing authority would administer the voucher, and DCYF would then make the referrals. So we did this in our county for about 2 years, and we were very successful. So we were given 25 vouchers from HUD. We were able to use 22 of those. The program continues to go. But because we were so successful with that model of actually having money for services, DCYF was able to go to the state legislature and say, look, this actually works, but we need money. Why, for you to say we have to make these referrals and then give us no money for services, that does not work. We can't do our job. And so DCYF was working on the Foster Youth to Independence, but they were also working on what's called the Family Unification Program, which is a voucher that's used to make sure that families, if the issue is really they need a home to make sure that the children stay with their parents, there's a voucher for that. But again, this is a unique situation where you really need services, case management, housing navigation. And so they coupled those two programs together, and DCYF went out to all the housing authorities and said, hey, look, this works. Bremerton did this. Would you be willing to do this if we can find a source to pay? Now, we weren't the only housing authority in the state of Washington doing this, but we were the one doing it with this component of services being paid for. And everybody recognized, and housing authorities all over the state recognized, yes, we will sign on to do this. DCYF was able to go to our state legislature and say, the housing authorities have committed 2,100 housing vouchers for these two programs, if you will fund the services. And the state came back with, we will fund the services to the tune of $7 million. Now, DCYF actually wanted twice that amount, but it's a start, right? So they are now our county doesn't have to pay for it here. And because we were pretty much first in line. They're paying for services in our county. It's one of the first ones that they're gonna, that they're gonna support, but they're doing it all over the state. But really, I could not have been prouder of Kitsap County during this legislative celebration that we had there, because it really was just such an inspirational and motivational thing to be able to say, yes, you know, we stepped up to the plate as a community and made this happen. And then on the right, this is our new program. This is a program that is also has never been done here in Kitsap. Typically, I think as most of you know, we open our wait list, our Section 8 wait list, for about a week every year, sometimes every other year. A bunch of people apply, and then we randomly order it, and then we start pulling off the wait list as vouchers become available. Well, as I said earlier, that gives us about a 30% success rate. And when we did the model of the emergency housing vouchers, where it was like this referral system, that went to a much higher success rate. So we decided to do something that we are allowed to do, had allowed you to do this, but there's a lot of rules around it. So what we decided to do was put in place a mechanism where we could enter into contractual relationships with shelter providers, other housing providers, people that are agencies that are willing to provide services and help their clients who are ready for independent living get a voucher without having to be on our wait list and being pulled from our wait list. As you can imagine, if you're on the wait list, this is a little bit controversial because people on the wait list are thinking then now other people are jumping ahead of them. And so we're not necessarily having people jump ahead. We're running both programs simultaneously, so we continue to pull off our wait list. But now we have this other mechanism by which a person getting services in, for instance, Kitsap Rescue Mission, if they're in that shelter and they're ready for independent living and they've stabilized, and Kitsap Rescue Mission is able to help them find a house and continue to provide them case management services, then they can refer them into Bremerton Housing Authority. If you have to go through the Housing Solution Center, if they haven't already, and then we'll provide them a voucher. And so we're excited about this because right now, Bremerton Housing Authority has been funded for about 250 vouchers that we have to get issued and reached up, and that's a huge number. It would nearly be impossible to do that if we were only doing it off the wait list. So last Friday, we had a training. Several organizations, both from Kitsap and actually Mason County, because we administer vouchers in Mason as well, came to this training where April 1st is our big start date, and we're really pumped up and excited to see how this goes, because it's not something that's done in very many housing authorities, and it's an opportunity again for us to really influence on a federal level how doing things in a different way can actually help HUD meet their goals of full utilization of vouchers.
And it was so great because for this one specifically, a lot of service providers came to a training to talk about this program and to talk about how unique it is. And we will be learning as we go. And it's first in Kitsap, but it's also a model to understand that, again, providing a way for individuals with vouchers can really can be supported by so many things. So there's a question in the chat, which I think is really a good question. It says, so what do we mean by services? So if we think about, and I will start, but we were funded for the rental assistance, right, Jill? So we're funded, once somebody's leased up, we're funded for the rental assistance piece. So there's no supportive services, like say if somebody needs to fill out a form or submit paperwork every year, get together their financials, there's things like that. There's more, behavioral health services. There's so many different services that somebody may need to live successfully independently. So, and we've noticed through the emergency housing voucher program, the FYI voucher program, that, pairing the voucher with services is really how the program should have been developed. And that's how it really supports getting vouchers and rental assistance to those who really need it. So we're trying to create those programs through these projects and partnerships.
Yeah, and also like just things like helping people get their credit scores to a place where somebody will rent to them, or getting, like legal things taken care of so that they can qualify for units. Things that, some of us may just take for granted because we haven't had those struggles with our foster youth aging out of foster care. Many of them don't have documentation like social security cards, birth certificates, things that are required for the foster program. So we're really talking about getting the help for people who may have barriers to getting those things for themselves. And then one of the biggest ones is helping people find a unit. It is really, we found it's very stressful for our voucher holders to actually pick up the phone and make a call to somebody that has a vacancy and try to walk through that process. So those are kind of what we mean by services. But then on ongoing, several people need help with other, whether it be health related, mental health related, transportation, things like that. The housing authority really doesn't do. We don't have funding to do it. But when we have service providers who will step in and do that, we find people are more successful in staying in there.
Yeah, and to that question, there's another question that says there are many places that have vacancy signs up. Why are there so many unhoused in the Kitsap community? I think this speaks to that, is that those who are needing the housing plus services, there's just not really a program for that. So we're trying to create a program for that so that we can, get our vouchers used, leased, and then keep people in housing so they can create stability and thrive in our community.
And we have to work hard on cultivating relationships with landlords. So there are landlords, they're not supposed to do this, but that will not rent to our voucher holders. It's getting fewer and fewer. I think people are seeing that with these services, being with the housing authority where you're for sure going to get your monthly payment, is a good thing that people want. But it's difficult, and sometimes we don't have money for security deposits or credit checks, things like that. So, we definitely have enough voucher holders to fill up the vacant units, but whether or not they can be in those particular units is a challenge.
And that's a good segue to the other question, which is, Eric from the Salvation Army asked, will the agencies we are working with have access to our landlord list so we can have landlords who take vouchers versus searching the communities for willing landlords? So just kind of have a leg up in knowing what landlords have worked with the program before.
Yeah, we do have a list on our website of units that are available. I don't know that we have a landlord list. Do we have a landlord list?
No, I think that it's a difficult question. It's multi-pronged because the landlords we've worked with, and I think that we can kind of come together, Jill, and figure this out, because I think it would be valuable what Eric mentions, because we have worked with a lot who understand the program, but also finding those new landlords to understand it, because that's a big piece of it, is just meeting with the landlords and teaching them about the program. And this goes back to, if you need individual training, one-on-one, have a question about something, doing outreach and really promoting this program will help get people housed. Because a lot of landlords just don't know. It just has had a bad reputation in the past. As you know, it's called Housing Choice Voucher now, but we always say it's formerly called Section 8, and you'll hear those terms together. But it is called Housing Choice Voucher because those who hold vouchers really do have choice, and they should be able to choose any private market housing. But we have to educate. There really is a role in education.
I will say that our partner with the Foster Youth and Independence Program, Olive Press, they did when they looked at the voucher or at the units available on our website, they thought to themselves, no, we can do better than this list. And so they went out and started recruiting landlords into our program. So while we may not have a comprehensive list that we can provide, if you are an agency that wants to be a part of this program and you want to know how to do that, we can certainly connect you with other agencies who have done it very well.
Yep. Let's see. We just have a few more slides, but I hope everybody's been enjoying. Again, we like to talk about these things. We want to have opportunities to tell you all about these things, but we know it's not just one presentation. But we want to get the word out specifically around, I don't know the update on this, so I'm interested to hear too.
Well, okay, so as I said earlier, the Housing Authority really, our standard for many years, place that we see ourselves on a continuum really is subsidized independent living. So kind of in the middle part of the housing continuum. But over the years, we've certainly expanded across the continuum. We have never been involved in building a shelter or running a shelter, and we certainly are not the experts in that. But here in Kitsap and Bremerton, we have Salvation Army. They're primarily open in the winter, and they are a congregate shelter. And so very needed. Obviously, they do a wonderful job. And Bremerton needed to have a more permanent shelter option. One, to serve the unhoused in our community is the primary reason that we really needed that. And then two, in order to enforce the camping ordinance, we can't enforce the no camping ordinance if we don't provide shelter, which makes sense. And so at the January 10th, 2024 study session, the city council asked to have a couple of options provided for them. One, a more congregate shelter setting, and then the other was a model that the Housing Authority and some of the other agencies in our community have been really looking into the hybrid shelter model. And this is a model where you have a smaller congregate, and even in the congregate, you try to provide semi-private sleeping spaces for people. And then you have pallet shelters, which are kind of a version of a tiny home. They don't have bathrooms, they don't have kitchens, but they are shelter where people that belong to the person that's staying in them while they're staying in them. So in other words, they don't have to take their belongings with them if they leave that shelter. It's really their space. They can lock the door and they can put their things there with the goal of helping people where they're at to find what they need to heal, to stabilize, and to be able to be moved into whether it's a subsidized situation or an independent living situation. And so it's a lot of work. It takes a lot of different agencies coming together to really help people so that we're not, so that the only option is not just a congregate shelter where they have to, leave in the morning and take all their things with them, or, other things like when we see the sweeps that happen in encampments and people end up losing so much of their life. And so we really wanted to create a model. It's been done in many other jurisdictions. Bremerton's not the first one to do this, and there will be a lot to learn, and there's going to have to be a lot of flexibility as we go through this. But the city council did vote that they wanted to pursue a hybrid shelter rather than the congregate style shelter. So Bremerton Housing Authority is stepping up as a primary partner in this, and a lot still to go. This is in the very beginning phases, but we truly believe in the shelter model, and we want to be a part of it because, as I said earlier, it really matters to us that when someone leaves a shelter or a temporary transitional setting and they have a voucher or they come to the Housing Authority as a resident, that they're really going to be successful. That is our heart's desire. And so how they get to that place of being able to be successful really matters to us. And so, we have found ourselves becoming more and more involved in the unhoused piece of the housing continuum so that when they come to us, we can really serve them and give them what they need for long-term, permanent, safe, affordable housing. So this is what we're doing. I don't have a great detailed update, but just know that we are working with several other agencies and with the city and with the county. Everybody's eyes are on this and are completely dedicated to making this happen, and I believe it will.
And I think that's a great point. Like, I think an update is great, just even if it's, things are happening. There is a lot of decision making, I think. And also, we know this was really only possible because so many community members and agencies came together and said, there is a solution, and let's see if we can work together. And I think so much positive came out of this during those between October and January. And it's just exciting to see, again, all of these projects are very partnership oriented. We couldn't do them without the dedicated partnerships. One more, Jill, one more.
Kitsap Affordable Housing Task Force. So this has been another thing we've all heard of. We've very informal, but we have done a lot of work. We have a lot more to do. I think with the shelter becoming a main focus towards the end of last year, we weren't as good as communicating and meeting and holding meetings as we would have liked to have been. This is not Bremerton Housing Authority alone initiative, although we're certainly, again, primary partners at the table for this. We did develop a pipeline of projects in Kitsap County that for housing that are at various stages of completion or starting or whatever. I think that pipeline is something that we can really look to see what's happening in our community, and more importantly, that we can use to promote Kitsap County to funders. And primarily, that is how it's been used so far, is going to, Tony Ives has taken a huge role in trying to find funding for Kitsap County for the projects that are being built here, primarily the ones that are in the pipeline, just because those are the ones that we know about. We encourage anybody who's doing a housing project to put your project in the pipeline. If you don't know how to do that, we can certainly get that information to you. But that way we know what's going on, and we can show the, not just people in our community, but the people in our state and people on the federal level, what's happening here in Kitsap, and that there is a real dedicated, committed effort towards expanding affordable housing. There's been several projects that are on the pipeline that have been successful in getting funding, including, as I showed you, Evergreen Bright Start, but there is also Mills Crossing. There was a project with Eagles Wings, some things with Housing Kitsap. I think we don't have like guiding set of principles. I think that's probably our next step in developing how the task force is going to work, both as a whole and with each other. One of our initial goals was to not be competing against each other. That's tricky, right? Because a lot of our agencies are doing things at the same time, and we all need money. So we're all putting in the same grant applications, the same legislative ask, and so on. And that might continue, and that's okay. But we want to be able to, even through that process, show up as a community that stands together, that supports one another, that says, oh, okay, this project is going, here's what I can do to support that project. So that's really kind of the goal of this, of how we're going to work together through a task force, with the ultimate goal, obviously, of really creating an ecosystem where we take people wherever they are on that continuum, and we ensure that if they're not housed, they get housed. If they are housed, they stay housed. If they're at risk of losing housing, that we catch them before that happens, and that we create more housing all along, whether it's workforce, homeownership, all of it, because the lack of housing on the entire continuum is there for every step of the way. And so we want to, as we're primarily focused on affordable housing, but there is affordable housing home ownership. So we don't want to, we want to make sure and include that in our work. That's kind of where we're at now. There will be more to come. We are going to try to hold quarterly meetings at least for the people that are interested in the task force. So more to come on that. I believe there has been a poll going around to try to find a meeting time in the next few weeks. So please, if you want to be a part of that and you're on that email, go to that poll, let us know when you're available. And if you're not on that email and you want to be, please reach out to Katie or myself, and we'll make sure and get you that information.
And this website has the most updated information. There's an email newsletter. Again, this task force is really about, it's again a strengths-based type of task force where say you have some capacity in grant writing or finding some opportunities. You found some opportunities. Say you found some like funding that nobody might not know about, and you really want to support, like somebody in Kitsap needs this. Submit it through the pipeline email, and we'll get it on the list. It's just about really bringing the information together, and I think that's what the whole spectrum of projects we're working on now is. How do we leverage our strengths? Clearly, I think I mentioned at the beginning, we have a lot of things going on, lots of change internally, but also these external projects. They're affecting us in all places. So again, thank you for your support. Thank you for your patience as we try to kind of manage all this. And one thing I want to mention is our website. So I think Jill, you mentioned the response rate, and we are improving, but we do have a lot of projects, a lot we have not talked about today. There is a lot of resources on our website. We are trying to keep it up to date. The biggest resource I would say is our Section 8 FAQs. I just saw today that within the last month, it's our second most visited page, and it has 50% of our views to our website. So it has really great information. This is only a portion of it. There's amazing information on here that we're trying to keep updated. So if somebody asks you, how does this program work? I recommend just going to our website, go to residents and participants. It's going to be the first link at the top. And again, we're trying to keep it updated. It's a great resource to answer those questions and to help field calls so that people can get responses right away, and that we can continue kind of working on our projects. So our website is amazing. Keep checking it. And we're trying to utilize our Facebook a little bit more. So keep an eye out for all of that. And then the last thing I'll say is I've been talking about this a lot. It's on our email newsletter. I brought it up to the partners at our training for the voucher referrals on Friday. But the deadline is March 29th. And if somebody we know might be on the list and hasn't clicked the Save My Spot button to save their spot on our Section 8 or Housing Choice Voucher waitlist, they must log into Rent Cafe to click that button. Again, email us if they have any issues logging in, if they even have a question, if they're on it or not, or if they've already saved their spot. We are prioritizing this. We want to make sure that everybody who could possibly save their spot and still wants to be on our waitlist has that opportunity. So that's my final point today. This information's on our website and on Facebook to share.
I think that's all. I think the next is just our contact page. So thank you guys listening to us. Katie and I, we could just talk all day, and we talk to each other all like this too. So we're super excited about Bremerton Housing Authority, but even more than that, we're super excited to be a part of Kitsap County. So thank you.
Thank you, everyone. I'm going to stop sharing. We can put our contact in the chat as well. Is there any questions before we get to the updates? And thank you all for being engaged so long. We appreciate it. But yeah, we can definitely talk about this all day. Okay, so I'll move on to the next agenda item. Again, reach out to us. I'll chat our contact information in a second. But so you don't have to keep hearing me talk. I'm just going to switch the agenda a little bit, and I want to say, Kitsap County, what kind of updates do you have about the point in time count?
Katie, I'm going to turn it over to Corey, who's going to talk about the point in time count.
Awesome.
Okay, and can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, that is amazing. Let me see if I can share my screen here. So we recently completed our 2024 Kitsap County annual point in time count. A point in time count is an annual survey that gathers information about people experiencing homelessness during a 24-hour period at the end of January. And when we're talking people experiencing homelessness, we're talking about people that are outdoors in addition to people that are in our shelters or transitional housing programs. The survey. It's required by HUD and through the Washington State Housing and Homelessness Assistance Act. It provides critical information regarding the scope and nature of homelessness in our community, and it can impact funding for our county and the services that are offered. The way that we do our count in Kitsap County is through a survey, and so that is voluntary for people that are participating in the survey, and it relies on volunteers to do the actual interviewing. So we have volunteers that go out into the community to food banks and meal sites, to our Project Connect fairs, which this group has been super important in making sure that those Connect fairs are a place that we can hold an event and draw people in that we might not interact with otherwise. And we also this year partnered with a number of outreach teams that perform encampment outreach throughout the year. So it requires a lot of volunteers, and this year we did count our number, our unduplicated number, drumroll, this year was 255 unsheltered individuals. That is a slight increase from last year. Last year we counted 245 individuals. There were 6 more households that we encountered over last year, and it accounted for an extra 10 individuals. Where we where we encountered people at, about half of the participants that we interviewed were in the Bremerton area, and half were in other parts of the county. So Bremerton was 51% of those that we interviewed. In Port Orchard, there was 18%, and Silverdale had 17% of those that were interviewed. Then smaller numbers in Bainbridge Island, Pulsvo, and other. We had a couple of households that were like out in Olalla or Kingston. When we talk to people about characteristics, we ask them if they have any disabilities, and 76% of those that we interacted with were able to provide some information on this. Of those that responded, 64% reported that they had a mental health condition. 53% reported a chronic substance use issue. And then between 30 and 35% were individuals with physical disabilities or chronic health conditions. And 6% were fleeing domestic violence. When we're talking about the number of people that are experiencing homelessness, we talk about those that are sheltered and those that are unsheltered. So people that are sheltered are people that don't have their own homes and are currently in emergency shelters, working with staff there to be able to move into some more permanent housing as part of their housing stability that they work on while they're in emergency shelter or in transitional housing programs. When we're talking about people that are unsheltered, we're talking about people that are staying out of doors, staying in vehicles, in RVs and boats, or in abandoned buildings. And out of all of the households that were surveyed as part of this, 57% of those that we were able to count for the point in time count, 57% were in our shelter system, and 43% were unsheltered. When we asked those that are living outdoors, what was their last place of residence, 86% said that their last place that they lived was in Kitsap County. So this comes up a lot, talking, you hear these stories about, well, the people are coming from outside of our area to access our resources. The vast majority of people in our county that we interact with last had permanent housing in our county. People tend to stay in the communities where they last had their permanent housing. So 86% were from Kitsap County, 13% were from another county in Washington State, and 1% were from out of state that they had last had their permanent housing. And when we talk about causes of homelessness, so we ask people what led to them losing their housing, their last permanent housing. Half responded to this question that we were able to collect. 57% of those that responded replied that they lost their housing due to a mental health or physical health concern or an illness. Followed by 43% said they lost their housing because they could not afford it due to housing affordability issues, or that they had lost their job, were unable to work, or had an eviction. So primarily the two drivers that we see under causes of homelessness from those that we surveyed during the point in time count were due to health issues or economic issues. 36% had lost their housing due to family conflict, and 24% had lost it due to substance use issues or were discharged from systems, which means that they might have been last in jail, hospital, psychiatric facility, or were leaving some kind of a foster care type situation. So, yeah, this year, 255 unsheltered individuals, a slight increase from last year. But one of the things that we changed this year was the way that we were surveying people outdoors. In years past, we would put together a number of volunteers in different parts of the county, and we would go out and survey for about 4 hours on a morning. And one of the flaws with that approach was that weather could significantly impact the ability to survey people. If people had left their encampments or places they were staying, we might have missed them. By working with the outreach teams this year, it gave them time to go out to these encampments multiple times if they knew that somebody was staying there and they had missed them otherwise, or it allowed them to, they already have relationships with people that are in the encampments, and it would make it easier for them to be able to engage with persons that were staying outdoors. And so I think that with that change this year, that it helped to kind of close one of those blind spots we had, where it was before it was just what could we find in those 4 hours. Now it's more when we're surveying the people that work with guests that are staying outdoors. They've got these relationships with these outreach workers, and that allows them a much better chance to be able to connect with the people that we know we can count into this project. So I'm going to stop sharing here. I can take some questions if there are some. I will stop sharing if it will let me, but I seem to not be able to.
Oh, no, you're good. You stop sharing.
Okay, it still shows on my screen, so I can't see any of the chat or anything.
Oh, there's no chat right now, but anybody have a question? Want to raise your hand? I know Corey's always open to answering questions about the point in time count for sure. Now or in the future. I know it's been a lot of information today.
It has been today. So I am going to, I was going to drop into the chat the link to our page, but since I can't seem to click anything right now, our a short link that you can go to would be kcowa.us/Kitsap-pit.
Oh, there, I tried. We'll see if that works out. I put it in the chat.
Thank you. And that also has reports back to 2017 that are available.
Well, thank you so much, Corey. Carl, did you have anything else? Oh, and Juanita had a question.
Juanita had a question.
Yes, looking at the results of the survey that you did, where you have 57% of unhoused are there because of health issues or mental health issues. So how has the partnership between Housing Authority and Kitsap Mental Health improved?
Well, what I will say is that data from the point in time count was one of those pieces that was used in helping to secure, to identify the need and secure funding for Pendleton Place. That, Kitsap Mental Health obviously used a lot of resources to help define the needs in Kitsap County and the needs for the resources that are available. But this would be one of those reports that help to demonstrate what the needs are in our county. Over the past 5 or 6 years, the number of households that self-identify with health or mental health issues has been increasing steadily each year. Last year was the highest, at like I think 63%. It was reported at 57% this year, but it was one of those factors that year after year for a number of years was increasing. And a lot of the other characteristics reported by households, a lot of times were pretty stable or similar year to year. But the mental health issue was something that, we were discussing that not only is it, an issue that might be on the rise, but we've also changed how we're talking about mental health issue. And we've been working over the years to reduce stigma around mental health. And that might also be a factor in that more people are more willing to disclose mental health concerns, or just the way that we ask people about issues that they have. That might also factor into that we're doing a better job collecting that information.
Thank you. And Carl, sorry, did you have anything? You're good?
No, we're so far we're on schedule with the Pacific building. Demo's all done, so we'll start rebuilding it fairly soon. That's all for us.
Awesome. So usually the last part of our meeting is updates from agencies, so we can share information with each other. So if you want to put that you have an update, you don't have to put the exact update in the chat, but you can share that you have an update, and then I will call on you. And while you're doing that, I will show you what we have upcoming and just a few reminders. And I know we put a lot in this meeting today because we don't have an April virtual meeting where we do these normal presentations and informational sessions. It will be our award ceremony and our event to just get together and celebrate each other and all this hard work that was done in the point in time count and all these partnerships and everything that we're doing. Some time to really celebrate each other and see each other in person. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that. If you want to put that you have an update in the chat, you feel free to do so. I always like to go to our website first. So let me know if you can see the website. We're good. I just remember I used to have a lot of Zoom issues, so I just want to make sure we can see it.
You're good.
Thank you, Carl. So it's kitsapHHC.org. Our email is admin@kitsapHHC.org. And our information is updated based on the newsletters we send about twice a month. So if you scroll down, I want to talk about two things. You can always see our most up-to-date resource guide, which it says 2024. But I think it was last updated in 2023. We were still working on updates for that. And then our meal guide was updated in January. So again, there's always updates to do, and we're just trying to figure that out. So, but they are on our website, and those are the most current versions. And then if we scroll down, if you go to the archive information, this link here, you'll see all of our past emails. So if you missed something, if you just signed up for our mailing list, you can see all of our past emails through the archive. And then what I want to mention is the award ceremony. So it's on a Tuesday. We couldn't secure a Wednesday because that's when the city council meets, but it's on a Tuesday, April 16th at 2 to 4. So our normal meeting time, but it's a Tuesday next month. So I'll try to get some updates out, but it might be on your calendar on Wednesday, just based on how the Zoom link works. But it will be an in-person event at the Norm Dix Government Center. And I think we did this last year and it was amazing. We actually did a hybrid last year. This year is just in person. So we hope you can make it. Again, this pushes our regular presentations out till May. So we won't have a virtual meeting in April, just this in-person meeting. And then our award nominations were extended, so you can still submit nominations for awards. And again, this could be anybody, your peers, your manager, someone that's really made an impact. We want to celebrate that, and this is a great opportunity to do so. And I know we have a lot of award winners here today with us. And it's just a meaningful experience to celebrate each other. If you scroll down to our website, it's on our emails too. But you can go to the nomination forms, and you'll come to this page, and we're going to try to close nominations on Friday. So we have time to kind of prepare everyone for, again, we want the nominators to come. We would love the nominators to come and present the award to the person they nominated. The executive team will meet and discuss, because as much as we want to give everybody an award, We have these 6 categories. So we try to give 1 per category. So if you have anybody in mind, please let us know through this form. And they're different individual forms, and feel free to submit multiple forms. Okay, stop sharing. And it looks like we have, oh, I don't think we have any updates in the chat. Does anybody want to raise their hand and update anybody on some services, some news about your agency before we close out? Well, I appreciate you all. I know we tend to take these to the 4 o'clock all the time these days. I think this is the norm now. So thank you for staying on as long as you have. Again, this is recorded. So that recording is going to be available on the YouTube channel, the podcast, The Conduit. Thank you, Marwan, for doing that. Again, if you all need any help, let us know. You can always reach out. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thanks, Katie. You always do amazing with this meeting.
Well, thank you, Bridget.
See you later, Katie.
Bye, Emily. See ya. Bye, Marwan.